Hello everyone, welcome to my Dead Space remake, hard difficulty, no damage walkthrough. This is Chapter 2, Intensive Care, and this is one of my favorite levels in the game, maybe even the entire Dead Space series. And compared to Dead Space 1, this level is a step up in quality. Dead Space 1 has got nothing on this chapter for this remake. It begins right now. You are going to see this game's mechanics demonstrated perfectly, and why the pacing of this entire chapter here is sublime, and the mechanics, they barely betray you because there are so many opportunities to use the environment to your advantage in very creative ways, and it rewards a keen eye. I didn't even realize that there was a table you could break, and you could use the table legs to your advantage as impalement devices in order to impale the necromorphs. But how this goes is you'll want to grab that pipe from the ceiling, and you'll also want to use the table legs on the ground in order to deal with the first three necromorphs. The fourth necromorph that spawns, you'll want to use the vent fan to your advantage. That is something brand new to the Dead Space series. This is the only game that does it so far. But you can actually use the fans that come from the enemy vents to your advantage if you want to dismember limbs. It is one of the coolest design choices in this game. This is a chapter that rewards a keen eye. Like, being able to observe your environment, picking out the subtle cues in the environment that let you realize that you can use these environmental objects to your advantage to deal with the enemies. This is where Dead Space's gameplay can really shine, and I don't feel like it's ever shined in the same way as this remake. Going through Chapter 2 multiple times and just replaying it, it is always a blast to go through this chapter. I was not getting annoyed with this chapter one bit. I was just constantly enjoying it every time I restarted. Admittedly, the times when I did restart, it was to something really stupid. I cannot begin to tell you the amount of times I restarted Chapter 2 just because of the stupid stasis doors. Because of the fact that Isaac takes a bit of time before he actually uses stasis, it can mess with your timing when going through doors, and also the timing on the doors when they're closing. You've got to bear that in mind whenever you use stasis on them, because if you go through the doors a little too soon, you will take damage from them. But that's just something I really don't like about this remake. For some reason, if doors close on you, they can do damage to you. I mean, I can understand this with the stasis doors, but even this door, like this door I went through right now, if I were to stand underneath the door as it was closing, I would have taken damage. This has happened to me a couple of times in this game, and it's really frustrating. But to talk about this lower level spawn right here, the spawn is always the same. Like, the location of the enemies is always the same. So you want to dispatch the first necromorph that comes around the corner, then deal with the legless necromorph, then you'll want to take out the necromorphs that spawn from the vents, and then take out the last legless necromorph. And you pretty much are able to set up for that spawn by dropping the impalement devices to the ground. And this right here, we're encountering the lurkers, and lurkers on this game are the best they have ever been. Like, lurkers in the previous Dead Space games were a badly designed enemy, mainly because of how tedious they were to fight. And not only that, but the projectiles that they fired at you made absolutely no noise, and you could not block the projectiles effectively with kinesis, even when you had an object right in front of you. And you can't even grab the projectiles with kinesis. And the game's limited controls didn't allow you to do any kind of strategic movement to actually get around the projectiles that the lurkers use against you. And when they're paired with other enemies, lurkers become an absolutely annoying enemy. They're more so of a nuisance than an actual scary threat. But on this game, you have the ability to use impalement devices against them to instantly kill them. And I already mentioned this before in Chapter 1, but at around Chapter 10 and onward, impalement devices will not be able to instantly kill lurkers, and so will the pulse rifle mines. Pulse rifle mines, as long as you detonate them when a lurker has its tentacles out, you will be able to instantly kill them. So you can fire a direct shot with the mine towards the lurker when the tentacles are exposed and instantly kill it. But like I said, after Chapter 10, this will not work because lurkers get a lot more health. But we're just moving on. Make sure to replenish your stasis at the stasis recharge stations if you're not trying to use stasis packs so much. You will get the schematic for the stasis packs back in that room where I dealt with those two spawns of necromorphs. This enemy right here, I tried to use the vent fan to my advantage, but for some reason, the vent fan was not accessible, even though, based on the way the necromorph came out of the vent, he should have pushed the fan towards me, but somehow the fan got destroyed, so I couldn't use it, so I had to use my plasma cutter. Dealing with necromorphs at that range is very dangerous because of their tendency to jump towards you, or sometimes just do this really fast grab that has really bullshit detection. And I wish I saved bloopers of it as I was replaying this chapter, but I wasn't thinking at the time, because I normally save these kind of bloopers when I have commentary for like my poor designs videos, but it totally slipped my mind to save footage of those. The grabs and the jump attacks that the necromorphs do on this game are so fucking retarded and so poorly programmed. They're easily the worst attacks I have ever seen in a game by far. Also right here, this is a bit sloppy, but I tried to use stasis to slow down this leaper, but it wasn't working. And then I tried to use this fan, but the kinesis detection was kind of screwing me, but luckily I picked it up, and I was able to instantly kill the leaper, because when you dismember the limbs of leapers when they're on the walls or the ceiling, they will instantly die. And right here, when you pull this platform over to here, there's going to be a necromorph around the corner, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot that vent and grab the fan. And I'm going to wait for him to expose himself, and the fan will automatically lock onto his legs, and I'm going to be able to stomp him because he's a normal necromorph. Again, this will not work on enhanced necromorphs or any other special variant of the necromorph. But now we're going to move on. Make sure to recharge your stasis in case you need it. This is going to be a 0G moment. So this is where the game will actually introduce you to the new 0G controls, which aren't new, it's just the same controls from Dead Space 2 and Dead Space 3, but the 0G was really stupid in Dead Space 1. You didn't have any thrusters, you basically had to aim your weapon and press triangle, and you'll then jump to a surface and then reorient yourself in relation to the gravity. And it was just very, very clunky, and also the detection could really screw you when you were trying to jump, and it was just very disorienting. But they've now improved it by making it a thruster-based system. That being said, though, I had to change my controls. If you're like me and you want L1 to be your sprint button, just like in the original Dead Space games, if you don't adjust your thruster controls, what's going to happen is when you're trying to boost in order to move faster during the 0G moments, you'll get the boost, but you'll be rotating at the same time, and that was definitely disorienting, so I had to change my thruster controls around. So when I take off, I press R1 and R2 at the same time, and I basically use those controls in case I want to actually spin around or anything, but I never find myself in a position where I need to spin or do anything, so I question why they put it in as a mechanic. But right here, there's some more 0G stuff since we're backtracking. This is a problem I have with the 0G in this part. For some reason, going up is a bit of a hassle. Like, look at this. I'm trying to go up, but Isaac just refuses to go up properly. Like, he has a lot of trouble just going vertical for some reason. I don't notice it as much in the other 0G moments, but for some reason right here, it was proving to be a bit of a hassle. But moving on, you need to land and get ready for a leaper that is about to come around the corner. If that was Dead Space 2, I would have already been hit, because leapers are so broken in Dead Space 2. Everyone agrees that they're the most broken enemy type by far in Dead Space 2, but not here. So stasis that guy and then aim for his arms in order to kill him. We're going to do some more 0G stuff. At least in this game, you have the ability to go through doors without having to land. This was not the case in the previous Dead Space games. You had to land before it would let you go through doors, which was pretty stupid. But right here, I'm going to grab this fan because there is going to be a leaper directly in front of me. I'm going to freeze him with stasis for the time being, and then I'm going to make sure that I aim for his tail. If I go for his front side, sometimes the blade will prioritize his head, and it will elicit no flinch animation whatsoever. If the fan hits the leaper's head, it will not elicit any flinch animation. You've got to specifically hit the arms or the tail in order to elicit a flinch animation when you are using the fans as your impalement device. It's pretty dumb that it works this way, and it's definitely where the auto-aim on the kinesis can screw you. But as long as you bear this in mind, you'll be fine. But we've now gone back to this security area again. Make sure to replenish on your stasis, and then use the bomb and destroy this barricade. But now we're going to move on. This one right here is the most broken necromorph in this chapter. You've seen it in that poor designs of Dead Space Remake Part 1 video, but I dismembered this guy's leg. But when I got close to him, he did the grab animation that he's only able to do when his leg is not dismembered. Somehow, this particular necromorph, when you dismember his leg, the game doesn't classify him as having his leg dismembered, and it's really broken. So when he does spawn out of the vent, grab the fan, dismember his leg, but do not get close to him, just use your plasma cutter to finish him off. And then right here, grab that impalement device and then put it right there, because a lurker is going to spawn when you pick up this battery. I think it spawns when you turn off the lights and the battery just comes out of the wall. I'm not entirely sure what the exact trigger is for this lurker to spawn, but just be very fast because a bunch of enemies are going to rush you. So when you open the door, use your stasis to stun those enemies. There's going to be a lurker and there's going to be a leaper right there. I recommend stunning this leaper with stasis. He came very close to hitting me right over here because normally when I just run past him like that and I just hug the left-hand side, he never comes close to hitting me, but this time he almost did. So make sure to use stasis on that leaper when you are making your way through this area. And when you get over here, the enemies will not follow you. There's going to be one lurker around this corner, and this is where I'm going to use the mines on the pulse rifle to my advantage. Although I did have a bit of a brain fart because I for some reason used the normal fire instead of the mines. And I did waste a bit of ammo, but it's not that big of a deal. And you might have noticed as well that I used the fan against the lurker and he didn't even flinch. I don't understand why that is the case with the fans. Why is it that the fans don't elicit an instant kill on the lurkers just like the regular blades do? That doesn't make any sense. So you've got to choose your impalement devices correctly if you want to stand a chance against the enemies, because some of the enemies have capabilities that really don't make any sense. Like what I demonstrated right there with the fucking lurker. Lurkers, for some reason, even though they're a very tiny enemy, they have more life than you actually think, and they're very resistant to the stomp animation, they're very resistant to fans, they're resistant to a lot of different methods that realistically, they would deal a lot of damage to this very tiny, fragile enemy, but the game says no to that logic. So if you're not specifically aiming for the tentacles when the lurker brings them out of its body, it's going to be a pain in the ass to kill. And that right there, I planted two mines in order to kill that infector, but for some reason it failed. It's very inconsistent. Normally I'm able to kill this guy instantly with one mine, but this time he managed to get away from the two mines, and I planted two mines as a safety measure, but it failed somehow. So I recommend using stasis on the black necromorph and then taking on the infector. Once it's dead, you can then focus your attention on the black necromorph, kill it, and then get access to the captain's rig. But now that that's done, we're just going to be making our way to the tram, and once we get to the hangar bay, I'm going to make a save, and that will conclude Chapter 2. But there is going to be one blooper, and it's going to showcase the problem with kinesis detection. So, for some reason, if certain objects are very close to walls, the kinesis has a lot of trouble detecting the object. This happens a couple of times when I'm trying to pick up table legs, when I'm trying to pick up blades, or when I'm trying to pick up the fans. And the fans are the one impalement device that really succumbs to this kind of issue a lot. But this happened with this one table leg right here. So you see, like, it's not detecting at all. And I'm trying to, like, manipulate the object, just displace it from its initial position to try to get kinesis to work, and it's still not working. And then eventually I'm able to displace it enough that the kinesis actually detects. But, like, what's any different? Why is this a huge problem with these impalement devices when you're trying to pick them up using kinesis? It's definitely a major issue with the game. And if this happens, you need to melee the object, you need to stomp the object, you've got to shoot it or something so that it gets away from the wall, and then you'll be able to pick it up with kinesis. But you should not have to do that. I cannot begin to count the amount of times this issue has really cropped up in a lot of areas, and I've been hit in the process just trying to use these impalement devices to my advantage. And I don't think it's going to get fixed anytime soon, because I don't see how you can fix this kind of issue. But that's enough about that. This is the end of this phenomenal chapter. Stay tuned for the future chapters. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.